has a lovely big building that he converted into office. And this is Steve Lifite. Steve is Howard's son, and Steve is now a doctor up in Seattle, Washington, married with a small child. And this is an early picture of me. I have to apologize for getting these mixed up. This was across the street from 312 Water Street, and there was a garage that my father ran for a while with the old-fashioned gas pumps and a lot of storage space in there that he rented out. And this house was down in Armonk, New York, and when I first went to Westchester County and worked at Banksville, and Alma and I got married, we rented this house from the principal of the Armonk School, who was in Hawaii on an exchange. And this is a picture of Alma. This is a picture of the two of us with the kids when they were little ones. In the upper part of the house on Ridge Road, we didn't have the money to finish it off, so the insulation was showing and the walls were bare. And however, the kids all slept up there when there were 4 of them living with us. Johnny, Chris, Steve, and Mary Beth. And this is Chris sitting down there with one of the cats. We had 2 Siamese cats at that time, named Biochemistry and Toxicology, believe it or not. Here's a birthday party, I guess. That's Johnny with his head turned away, Chris, and next to Chris is a little boy by the name of Bobby Lazaro, who lived on the block. Bobby was one of the principal's sons that was a friend of mine. And this is me back down in Miami Beach when I first went in the Air Force. We were training down there. And that's another picture of sacking out time on the porch down on Miami Beach in the good sunshine. Miami Beach was a lot different in those days, back in 1942. This was in Gulfport, Mississippi, at the barracks there. And this was up at Chanute Field in Illinois, where I went after I left Gulfport for advanced electrical training. I should have stayed in Chanute Field. It would have been nicer. It was a great place to be. Chanute Field was right near Rantoul, where the University of Illinois was. And it was a very nice place to be because we could take off weekends and go to Chicago. This is back down in Mississippi, I think. It looks like the barracks down there, and of course I have my fatigues on, so I must have been on duty that day or digging stumps out or something. Now this is over in Foggia, Italy, near Cerinola, which is in the central part of Italy. And this is a kind of quarters we had over there. 16 by 16 pyramidal tent, and we put boards around the side to keep the wind out. And this, we were right in an olive grove. Took it over, and there was a big wheat field nearby that we used for a field for the airplanes. Pretty primitive living in many respects. This was our washing facility. He went and got a bucket of water and put it in the, I guess we had a tap, I don't know. It took a long while. We finally got a big tank and filled it with water, so we had running water in the place, but it wasn't very sanitary. And I guess we were moving or something because all the stuff is outside. Either that or we're trying to rebuild the tent. It was crazy. I'll tell you, I was there for 19 months and it wasn't much fun. We slept on those folding cots with a mattress cover filled with straw. That's Frank Hawkins on the left, and McCurley and Rice and Lifite. We all lived in the same tent. Actually, there were 6 of us. 2 are missing here, a guy by the name of Rystad and Tiny Brackett. And this is me and McCurley down on the line. You can see a B-24 behind us. This was wintertime, and believe me, it got cold in Italy. It got really cold. And this is a picture of me and Frank Hawkins. Frank lives in, he came from Providence, Rhode Island. He lives up on the Cape now and has a summer or a winter home down in Boynton Beach, Florida, so I see him once in a while. And Hawk and I apparently are going into Foggia on leave, and had to get all dressed up in our Class A's. Go see what the town was doing. I guess we're both sergeants then. This is a picture of Tent City. We were lucky. We were in a grove with trees, so we got some shade, but most of the tents were right out in the open like this in a long line. And this was fairly nice weather, but of course then we had winter come, and you got the mud and the cold rains, and it was terrible. It was just miserable over there. And this is how miserable it got, because on January 1st in 1944, we had one hell of a big snowstorm, and it covered the ground with about 7 or 8 inches of snow. And while it didn't last too long, it was cold as the devil, and of course it just made everything miserable. But we had a lot of fun for a little while, because what we did is we got out there and started throwing snowballs at each other and trying to build snowmen. And if you notice the pipe coming out of the top of the tent, that had fuel oil or gasoline that we burned in the stove, and of course the smoke came out, so in no time at all the snow was covered with soot. This was typical attire. We had fatigues, and we had these leather jackets with the fleece collars and the hats that had earmuffs, and it was miserable. There's a picture of the tent city with the snow on the ground and the footprints through it and the mud underneath it, and it was rotten living. That is the typical attire, the leather jacket, the hat. We weren't issued those leather jackets. We'd steal them from the flight crews. Either that or we trade them something. When the war was over and I was moved over to Manfredonia with another outfit, we got tired of living in tents, so we decided to build a house. And we got one of the Italians around there who knew how to cut this block out of the ground, and he started putting up what looks like a concrete block house, but this was tufa rock, as they called it, and they quarried it. Very light, and he cemented it together, and we put this thing together and lived in it. It was really great. We stole the roof from buildings that were being torn apart after the Air Force left, and we took a P-39 tank and put it up on stilts, and that was our running water. It was kind of nifty. It was a hell of a lot better than living in a tent. This is after it was finished and looked a little bit better, before we got windows in it. I don't know, I guess we got the windows out of some abandoned buildings too. We were great scroungers. Had nothing to do because the war was over, and we weren't servicing airplanes because they were all stacked up on fields. And you can see the roofing, plywood, and we would, you know, steel tables and chairs and things like this wherever we could get them and put them in.